Good morning. See, I got the north side listening. I gotta get the south side in. Good morning. My name is David Wong. I am the chair of Barnes & Thornburg's Internet and Technology Group, and I'd like to welcome you all this morning to New Economy, New Rules. In my estimation, there are at least three things we can be thankful for this morning. First, it's Friday, right? Second, it's starting to finally feel a little bit like spring. And then third, we have a very wonderful presentation in store for you this morning. Very excited personally to hear from our very talented and knowledgeable panelists. Also like to welcome remotely our Barnes & Thornburg offices in South Bend, Elkhart, Fort Wayne. We also have joining us the Chamber of Commerce of Southwest Indiana, SBDC in Evansville, and also Mid-America Science Park in Scottsburg, Indiana. So we truly are statewide this morning. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the President and CEO, Mike Langelier, our moderator this morning. So Mike.
Thank you much.
I'm sorry, Mike. I don't have it. Just scream really loud.
I'll do it from here.
Just till I get it.
All right, we'll get rolling from here. Happy Friday. We have an excellent panel this morning on a topic that gets talked about a lot. And the topic is building a B2C company in a B2B town. So we're going to be talking about some of the kind of unique nuances of one versus the other and whether that's real, overplayed, what the kind of similarities and differences are. We have joining us Shelly Towns, here on our left, VP of Product at Angie's List. She's been in many different roles at Angie's List and now focusing as Angie's List is increasingly becoming a tech company on that product and technology component at the company. Perfect, thank you. All right. And Sean Schwegman, CEO of Gusto, currently, but also has a lot of experience at significant B2C companies as CMO at Cha-Cha, and then also at Overstock.com before that. And Randy Stocklin, who is the CEO of One Click Ventures, and previously at Angie's List as well, comes from a tech background, now running an e-commerce company. So thank you all for joining us. Let's kick off with Sean. Sean, you are building and raising funds for a B2C business in Gusto. First, tell us about it, and then also you're just starting off and lightly funded as you're kind of ramping up here. Which marketing channels and tactics are you focused on, and why?
Sure. So can you hear me okay? So Gusto is a communication platform that pulls together your entire life. So we got the idea for it because everyone is on the go. I think there was a tipping point where now 51% of email is read first on a mobile device, yet you can't attach a file, and it's kind of a janky experience. There seems to be an app for everything, meaning you're bouncing back and forth between multiple apps to be productive. So Gusto, today, we launched on Monday, thank God, and right now you can connect a Gmail account, and then we pull all your email files and photos out of Gmail and expose that back to you in a unified experience. And then in future releases of the product over the next couple months, you'll be able to connect all the other accounts across your digital life, from social to cloud storage, et cetera. So really provide that one view across everything. And we really put that into a more powerful email client, really, to start. So the thought is, once you have everything from your entire life all in one view, you want to search it and you want to communicate about it. So we attacked email first. In terms of marketing channels for us, we're really a mobile-first company. So the whole goal for this business is to drive as much user growth in the early days as we possibly can. So we've chosen, what I'd say, 3 pillars in the phase 1 launch of marketing: Facebook, Tapjoy, and PR. So I'm a big fan of PR, and I think we've got a great partner with Ditto. Liza Ditto's helping us out a lot personally. So that's, I think PR if done well, can make it rain, and we're putting a lot of eggs in that basket. I think with Tapjoy, it's an incentive-based mobile app. So my son's heard of Tapjoy. He knew about Tapjoy before I did, and as is the case these days. But he'll play some game he wants to unlock the +1 sort of power for whatever, and that costs points. I never let him pay money to buy those points, but Tapjoy is basically an incentivized download tool, so that or an advertising platform, so he can download an app and earn points for that download. It really generates that specific type of piece of the platform doesn't generate the best quality of user. They're not there for your app. They're there for points for their sort of power, but it generates velocity for very inexpensive, and that velocity is important to penetrate iTunes and really to grow rank and visibility. And then the third piece is Facebook. Facebook, I think the mistake a lot of people make with Facebook is they might run a half a dozen or a dozen campaigns. We probably have about 30,000 campaigns planned at launch, so very, very micro-targeted. It's a very data-driven marketer, and I find that marketing is all about failure. So you learn a lot by targeting at the utmost granular level, and you get data out at the level or granularity that you put into it. So it allows us to very quickly tune up and figure out what works, what doesn't work, why didn't it work, why did it work, et cetera. So those are the three pieces that we'll start with, and then we've got a much bigger plan a couple months in.
Quick follow-up to that. You came from Cha-Cha, Overstock before that, much more heavily funded startups out of the gates. Same game plan then as you do now? If I handed you $1 million check right now, would you do it differently with Gusto, or would you employ different tactics?
Let's get back to that $1 million check. I think I've helped to raise about 70 to 100 million or so over the last decade and a half at different startup companies and all at different stages. It's a hell of a lot easier to pull in $20 million than it is to pull in one, and especially in B2C, and especially in a B2B town. We've had a lot of, I think Indianapolis has a wonderful ecosystem here, but it's mostly B2B and mostly life sciences or healthcare, and so people that have had successes and wins tend to stick with what they know. So trying to navigate the angel network in Indiana has been a challenge. But I think companies go through different stages, and when you're pre-product, you're selling an idea, right? The thought and the team and really the strategy. And then once that product launches, it's a different story. Then you're selling the growth, and it's easier to invest because there's less risk. So the first cash we pulled in was extremely difficult. This was the hardest cash I've ever raised in my life, and I hope I never have to do that again. But we will.
Shelley, Angie's List is one of the few local examples of a B2C company that's gotten to significant scale. What were the key drivers for attracting that customer acquisition, kind of getting that flywheel turning as you guys scaled to, what, 2 million, 2.5 million individuals?
Yep. So I think the story has been pretty well told over the years, and most people in this room probably know it. It started, Angie literally went door to door, and by the end of a year had signed up 1,000 customers. And what they knew pretty quickly was there was going to be a significant network effect. The word of mouth potential amongst the consumer base was going to be really big, and so it became a true land grab for customers, so that we could build off that compounding of socialization of what we brought to the table. So marketing was everything, and I think I was lucky to sit in marketing for 7 years at Angie's List before moving to product, and talking to some other folks at other companies, learning that marketing sometimes took a back seat in that growth strategy. I was happy to know that at Angie's List we did set the growth. So everybody followed suit to what marketing was going to put on the table in a given year. We ran the acquisition on a total CPA strategy. So everything, we had a pretty significant, we were tied to a number. Everything had to come in at that number. And to echo what Sean said, it's all about failure. And we're happy to fail. We just want to fail fast and move forward. So we've certainly tried a lot of things that didn't work. But in 2006, we'd had some really big success with NPR. And we luckily had a very astute NPR sales guy, and I think Cleveland, who came back to us and said, you're buying in 12 markets. You're to the point now where it would be cheaper for you to buy a national campaign with us and to continue to add cities. And so Angie and Bill sat back and said, you know what, he's right, and let's do it. So another one of those, we're pretty risk tolerant, and we just threw it in and said, let's go national. So we stood up the TV campaign, which was a tremendous success and also extremely expensive, and I'm sure everybody's heard about that. So we were spending millions and millions of dollars on this offline awareness campaign, and to maintain that scale and to afford it, we knew we had to stand up some cheaper acquisition channels. So in 2009 we launched, we went heavy into search and built a very successful SEO and pay-per-click campaign to complement that offline spend that we did. So to Sean's point again, we had this kind of macro awareness strategy, but then we had these very micro-targeted, local niche search campaigns, really to get in front of the folks that had a problem and maybe weren't thinking about Angie's List yet. So we very, very specifically focus on a generic and brand campaigns, the dollars, and the outlay looks a lot different. The marketing language is a lot different, but really important, because it's hard to believe now, but even in 10, not everybody nationwide knew of Angie's List and knew exactly what we did. They do now, and just kind of iterating our marketing strategy to take advantage of what everybody knew and thought of us as really helped. So yeah, it's just a total acquisition play, and just continue to fine-tune those channels.
So Randy, in comparison, you run an e-commerce shop. What's critical for you, and how does that compare to the drivers for Gusto and Angie's List?
Yeah, so I do have some experience at Angie's List, but it was before that Angie's List made a significant investment in the digital channels that Shelley mentioned. I would say the primary difference is our business has been primarily focused on digital channels up to this point. So SEM, email marketing, SEO, and we haven't, other than some PR opportunities that we've pursued with various publishers in terms of product placements, we haven't explored offline advertising opportunities. So that's the primary difference I see between one-click and Angie's List today. Now, with our go-forward direction that I know we're going to get into later in the discussion, I do see us investing in channels that are not digital. So I see us investing in PR. I see us investing in print. I see us investing in radio. Now, we don't have the budget that Angie's List has today with the television advertising, but that's something else that I could see for us in the future.
I think, just to quickly add something, I think the biggest difference is the difference between branding and awareness and direct response, right? When you're in e-commerce, I think there's always a blend. It's just what percentage, what gets the lion's share of the focus, right? And so online e-commerce, there's a much larger focus in direct response, where you're measuring, at a click level how much you're paying and does that generate cash, versus awareness. And Shelley probably has a lot more experience than I do on this one, but what I've seen in my experience is that one aids the other. So in other words, if you were in a search campaign and you're looking at every click and you're looking at the profitability of every single campaign, having an awareness campaign like radio or TV that goes in that same market tends to lift the CTR, the click-through rates in there, because people have heard the name before, and so they're more likely to click on that ad when they see it. So that said, with e-com, at least the overstock was probably 80-90% of our spend went to direct response and a very small amount of awareness. At Angie's List, it's probably, I don't know, I can't speak for you, but probably higher on the brand awareness side than direct response. And then with Gusto, we launched here at Verge instead of launching at South by Southwest, mainly to build awareness for as inexpensively as we could in the Indianapolis market. But almost everything we're doing, beyond PR, is direct response based. Yeah,
so I think one of the things that makes it difficult for Angie's List campaigning is there is a tail, and measuring what that tail is and what the effect is and the overall halo effect. So, as we got big into SEO, we knew that the click-through rates would be affected by the offline spend, but the offline spend wasn't going to get us the rankings itself. Certainly there's a cyclical nature to it. More clicks, you get increased rankings, so you could make that argument, but it is very different, and we're very mindful of the difference and trying to tease out. So that our biggest focus is on marginal lift and marginal growth year over year, as opposed to overall growth, because there's just so much hangover effect from all the other things we're doing.
Randy, I think you're referencing, you've kind of changed strategy, like sort of narrowed in on, you were doing a lot of different kinds of companies selling a lot of different kinds of products. You've narrowed that. What's the rationale and how's it working?
It's working exceptionally well. So our team is very data-driven.
Give a little bit of background, too, on those different properties you had before and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so at its core, One Click Ventures is a pure-play online retailer. Historically, we've grown the business by bolting on acquisitions in the eyewear and accessory space. And a little over a year ago, we looked at the business and objectively and said, hey, we really feel like we need to take the business a different direction. And the team is very data-driven. And so we looked at an absurd amount of data when we made this decision. So if I had to distill the decision down into a few key points, one point would be building a defensible position in the market. When you have an Amazon as a competitor, Amazon's always going to be able to sell a product cheaper than you can. They're always going to be able to ship a product faster than you can. You have to look for a point of difference that Amazon cannot replicate, that a customer is not going to be able to experience at Amazon. And that could be, for us, it's going to be we are going to offer a unique brand experience, and we're also going to offer products that cannot be found on Amazon. So that's a big part of the equation for us. Another point is our team looked at the eyewear market. So the eyewear market is a $20 billion market, and one of the interesting dynamics taking place in eyewear, if you look across retail, about 5% of retail takes place online. Still a very immature and growing. E-commerce is a very immature and growing industry. In eyewear, just 3 years ago, about 2% of eyewear transactions took place online. So that has changed dramatically just in the last 2+ years. Now that percentage is around 4%. So you have the eyewear market as a whole is growing. More people are coming online to make purchases in an already very large market, like I mentioned, $20 billion. So the opportunity in the eyewear space today is massive.
We also had a lot of deregulation in the legal space with eyewear, right, with contacts. I just remember in Overstock, we had the guys from the 1-800 Contacts were in the same city, and I spent a lot of time. They had like 9 lobbyists, which I thought was odd as a startup company, but they had to help deregulate the ability to sell prescription contact lenses. Do you still have that as a problem?
We do not.
No.
We do not. So a third, and if I can continue, Mike. So a third point that we looked at is we looked at what we had success with as a team, and we were able to deploy our marketing dollars more effectively in eyewear. We were able to service our customers better in eyewear. We just felt like overall when we were prioritizing, at one point we had 9 brands in the portfolio, and when
One of them was scuba gear, right?
We did not have scuba gear. We did have a fedora business. We were selling fedoras, which we've sold that business now. Neckties, handbags, scarves, so a variety of different accessories lines. But when we did our annual or quarterly planning, our team always gravitated toward our eyewear brands. And so that was an important factor. And finally, our team just looked at one another and said, do we want to continue building a transactional e-commerce business. And no one was really energized by the thought of building a transactional blocking and tackling e-commerce business. And so we talked a lot about building a unique brand experience and something that wouldn't be easily replicated by other brands. So, and that's really morphed into a value prop that we feel is going to be very compelling in the marketplace. We have working on a new brand to supplement our two current eyewear brands. And so when I speak about eyewear, I'm referring to prescription eyeglasses, sunglasses, and readers. And so we're working on a new brand currently that will offer prescription eyeglasses at a higher price point than their current product line. So our current product lines are between $10 and $20. So they're sunglasses you can buy at the mall kiosk. They're reading glasses that you can buy at Walgreens. So we're going to continue with our discount product lines, but the new brand will be prescription eyeglasses and reading glasses and sunglasses, all priced between $75 and $300. So we're going to upstream in price. We're bringing a very compelling value prop to the market that doesn't exist today. And our tentative launch date is July, but for a couple folks on our team here, that's subject to change.
Remember that if anybody does have questions that they want to have submitted to the panelists, you have cards in front of you. Those online can email them in as well, and we'll collect them and bring them up. I've got some additional questions, but feel free to send those in, and we'll turn it over to audience questions as well. So, Shelley, we talked about the B2C side of Angie's List, but also increasingly it has a B2B component that is a significant part of the revenue stream, right? So, not only just selling the Angie's List membership to consumers, but now monetizing the service provider side and actually helping to advertise and promote the best service providers. Can you talk a little bit about the difference and what are the dynamics of one side of the business versus the other living underneath the same company shell?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we do have that kind of that dual revenue model inside, where the monetization on the service provider side has always been the case. Pretty early on from the business, that was realized as the true potential for growth. The member revenue itself was never going to pay the bills. And so, the unique thing about it is, in order for that SP base to advertise to our members, they have to maintain
service providers.
They have to maintain that high rating as reported by our members. So it's not a free for all. It's certainly very, very heavily guided and made sure that those guys are in good standing. But so once that was realized, I would say probably 60% of the staff is focused on the B2B side, and I think in order for us to really do well on both the B2C and B2B sides, we had to have a truly distinct focus for both. We don't have the same management team managing both. Obviously, it's critical that we know our end users and get inside their head. Our service providers run the gamut from the guy that writes his schedule on the back of the Hardee's bag in his front seat to a guy that has a fleet of 40 vans with uniformed technicians with iPads with GPS location on them. So how do we stand up tool sets and truly make the Angie's List experience valuable for them and that they want to run their business with our help? And for the large majority of our service providers, their talent is turning a wrench or designing a kitchen or fixing a car. It's not administration or marketing. Angie's List has the namesake and the heft to help them offload those services, and that we can help, which allows them to spend the majority of their time and dollars on the things that they do best. So we're extremely sympathetic. I think there's a saying internally that tie goes to the member, because the member is why we're all here, and the service providers can't exist in a vacuum at Angie's List. But they are right there neck and neck with our members in terms of our mind share and our empathy. They have a very difficult job, and we are focused every day on making their lives easier and giving them distribution and visibility, which is our search product. And they know that we hear from service providers all the time that we're responsible for 100% of their business, and we take that very seriously. One of the things that I'm very proud of this year is we've stood up, in my product team, I have a woman who focuses solely on product and market research. We're building consumer advisory panels for both our homeowner customers and our small business customers to truly get into their brain and say, how can we help you? What do you like? What don't you like? We are developing a net promoter score rigor so that we have a finger in the wind to say, are we doing well or not? Angie's List is very data-driven, and I come from the marketing side where everything was down to a decimal point, and product can be kind of squishy. How do we know that we're doing a good job? And so it's important to us to keep our finger there and to make sure that we're not building technology for technology's sake, but that we're truly solving problems. Our goal at Angie's List this year is to transform the way local service is delivered. We think we're the best person in the country to do that. We think we have the data and the tools and the resources and the capital to do it. And I think really important for us, we're in a position that because we're sending that business to the service providers and because our members are so engaged, we're in a position to actually change behavior. And so we want to take advantage of that this year. And while we spent the last 18 years focused on building the database of truly who does the best service, because there's millions of people with a toolbox and a very small set that actually provides superior service that we are proud to recommend, how do we take advantage of that and now build the utilitarian tools that make getting the plumber to your house easier, because we still haven't solved for that. So in the fall, we launched a new mobile product called SnapFix, where you literally take a picture of your problem and send it to Angie's List, and magic elves behind the scenes make sure that that problem is fixed. And we want to do more of that because we know who the best plumber is, but it's still a pain to get him to your house. And so that's really our tremendous focus this year is that utility and the technology to make it simple.
So you mentioned product and technology, the tools that you're building. Angie's List increasingly becoming a tech company as you're moving from kind of the data and marketing side to the enabling tools. In addition to SnapFix, what are you focused on? What are the tools, products that you're building, and why?
Yeah, so we're focused on the experience and again, solving those problems. The home repair industry is $30 billion plus a year. That's not going away. And so how do we, increasingly customers online, if LinkedIn or the supermarket or Amazon or anybody out there that you become, considerate of and you come to expect those kinds of tool sets, we can't be any different. So if our customers are telling us, listen, I want to schedule this stuff online, I don't want to call the guy, I don't want to take a day off work, I don't want to wait for him to call me back or not call me back, where are those friction points? So, talking about an Angie's List Labs concept where you really just watch from the second the pipe leaks to the second it's fixed. What is every single point along that line, and how can Angie's List insert itself and make it easier? There's lots of opportunities there. So we've built internally what we call our transaction loop, and truly it is, what is that series of steps between the pipe breaking and the pipe getting fixed? And we built a $2 billion business on solving for the top two, which is pipe breaks and tell us how it went. And if you think about all of the steps along that, which is find the guy, call the guy, schedule the guy, get him on site, evaluate the work, pay the guy, and then review him, we want to play in that entire space, and we want to be part of that transaction because for 18 years, the biggest complaint that our members have said is they just don't call back. Well, if we don't know you called them, we can't help. So how can we build tools that are easy for consumers to adopt and for most importantly, the service providers to adopt, and gives us that visibility so that we can help and we can take advantage of our market, our marketing and our brand to really get in there and help solve these problems and make it simpler. So we're in the process of rewriting our entire tech stack, which anyone in this room that's been involved in that knows how horrendous that is, and it's going to be a very difficult transition, but a critical one. And we're excited that we took the plunge and we're doing that. We think the new tools will allow us to move very quickly. We are developing a product culture at Angie's List, so whereas marketing called the shots for our history, it's going to be a product marketing focus, and there's a lot of product market fit and a lot of guesswork and trial and error, and Angie's List, our culture nearly requires that testing mentality, so we're built for that. We just have to refine our processes internally for how we go to market and how we build and ideate. We have a ton of ideas. We got to execute. And so how do we build both the talent and the staff and the internal tools to do that quickly? Innovation is a competitive field, and we want to take advantage of all of the resources that we've built, and just start turning this stuff out and making a difference. So.
Got a question via Twitter. Hashtag NENR for those in the audience. for new economy, new rules. So question for Sean. How does Gusto messaging differ from Google Plus and Google Drive, and how do you tackle that giant?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're Switzerland, so I don't care what email you use or what cloud storage. And the truth is, when it comes to cloud storage, I might favor Dropbox, but you might send me something in Google Drive, so I have to have an account there. Someone else sends me something in Box. So now before you know it, I've got accounts at half a dozen different cloud storage providers, and my life is further spread out, right? So our attitude is we don't view Google or Microsoft or Facebook or any of them as competitors. We're an enabler to their business. We want to help the consumer at the end of the day cut through the noise and find exactly what it is that they're looking for, but to turn around and jump right into that post on Facebook or that file on Google Drive when they need it, right? So I think that's the biggest difference. And you look at, like to Google, there's typically two questions I get from investors, and one of them is, are you worried that Google or someone like that will do exactly what you're trying to pull off? And the truth is no, not really. Google is sort of a collection of companies these days, right? So Gmail barely talks to Google Drive. They just recently sort of improved that connectivity. And even the way that it's done today is in my mind, it's very siloed. And so, but even if Google figured out, which I think they will eventually do, how to really tighten up the integration between Gmail and Google Plus and Google Drive and deliver a great experience, I really don't see Google allowing someone to post something to Facebook. Call me crazy. I haven't seen a Google product that shares well with the Microsofts or Facebooks or whatnot of the world. And the problem on the consumer side is, my work, I might have Outlook, but my personal email is Gmail, right? And so you tend to have, as a consumer, accounts spread out all over the place, which I think paves the way for a company like ours to kind of layer on top and roll it up. And I also think that search is, that's the area that we really focused on. Use Google to search the world's content, and it's contextual keyword search. What we hope is that people will use Gusto to search your content, and it's what I would call a faceted search, which is very akin to what you have at a retailer, meaning when I go to Amazon, I might do a search, but then I can filter by price, color, style, size, etc. When I'm looking for a file, today I have to do a keyword search, and then I have to wade through dozens and dozens and dozens of emails to find that one file that I'm really after, when really I know I'm looking for a file that has the word investor. It's a presentation. You can tell what I've been doing lately. It's in my inbox. I sent it, or it's in my sent items. I sent it in the last 30 days to Bob, right? So I know different attributes about that. So we really focused in on search as one of the core technology pillars in our system. So you can actually just do a keyword search, or you can say, here's a keyword search. I know it's in my Gmail. I know I sent it in the last 30 days. And that allows you to find the file or photo or email or whatever that you're looking for instantly.
Randy, I think this one's for you. Look into your crystal ball a little bit. What do you envision with respect to the present big store, small store retailing versus internet buying? Will the department store soon become obsolete?
I do not. No, I don't see the big box offline stores becoming obsolete. What I see, and you're already seeing it today, is better integration between the online and offline experience. And even in the eyewear space, you're seeing some of the retail startups, the online retail startups that cut their teeth initially in e-commerce. Now they're expanding into offline stores. One particular brand that comes to mind is Warby Parker. For those of you who are familiar with that brand, Warby started as a pure play online retailer, and they've since opened a number of retail locations around New York City. So I think you're just going to continue to see those two worlds merge, and what I see with the larger big box stores, the Walmarts, the Targets, those brands are paying closer attention to providing a better overall experience, and whether you're making a purchase online or offline, there's flexibility between those two environments.
I think it's category dependent too, though, right? Because you have, if you look at travel, in the early, call it mid-'90s, there were travel agencies like Starbucks on every street corner practically, right? Can't tell you the last time I've spoken to a travel agent. We just go to Expedia or whatever the source is. With online banking, I can't tell you the last time I've been into a Chase Bank. I do everything from the mobile phone. You can even scan your checks today, right? There's no reason to go in unless you need to open an account or make a change. There's still, banks all over the place, but I think it just depends on what the category is. Like fashion, there's always going to be a retail home for fashion because people want to try stuff out, right? But to Rainey's point, I also think that, part of the it depends on what the user mindset is. Sometimes we want things and we want it right now, and we don't want to have to wait. And even though Amazon's experimenting with their little helicopter packages and whatnot, I think it's going to be a long time before that happens really fast. And so for those of us that are impulsive, which I am, I have ADD and OCD, and I want stuff now, I'm always going to go to retail. But for those bigger ticket items, I'll go to retail to take a look at it all, but then I'll shop online to try and find the best price. And you get a lot of that offline-online behavior when it comes to larger ticket items, and if you're willing to wait, finding the best price for it.
All right. This was kind of a free-for-all. In B2C, what's the typical decision cycle from customer awareness to purchase? And it's probably different. You're a freemium model, Sean. In both of your cases, there's a purchase up front, but maybe from an Angie's List perspective, a little bit of a trial type of experience. In B2C, what's the typical decision cycle from customer awareness to purchase? And do you have to get in front of a customer 7 times, less or more? Has that changed? Is there a typical cycle that you're seeing, and is that dynamic changing?
I think it does depend on the channel. Certainly, it's the majority of our purchase are not a first visit conversion. I would say I haven't looked at the data very recently, but I would say it's a handful of touches before the conversion happens for us. And it honestly depends on the need. So while we run very heavy on awareness campaigns, we do measure like a direct response campaign. And for Angie's List, no one kind of just says, I'll get Angie's List because maybe one day it's my basement is flooding with water right now and I need Angie's List. And so our goal is to always be top of mind so that when that life situation happens, that we are what they think of. And so it really just depends. But every single person in this room has a list in their head of things that they should do around their house. They just don't feel like doing them because it's a pain. And so how do we change that mindset to make it fun and easy to get that stuff done and to hopefully save you some money in the process? And so it really does depend. I do believe for sure that the decision cycle is much less than B2B, but it's for us at least because of that probably paid model too. It is a few touch points before they convert.
Yep. I don't know. We just launched on Monday, so we'll that said, I mean, I've been in B2B, probably 25% of the last 2 decades were at B2B companies, and it's one of them was a large e-commerce platform provider, so the sales cycle was like 9 months trying to sell companies like Newegg and eToys and Target and whatnot on pieces of their e-commerce platform. And so when you look at that type of enterprise sales model versus, like retail, and even in retail, you have so many different types of retail that it really depends. That's a tough question to pinpoint. One of the, speaking from sort of the overstock perspective, we made a big decision to do books, movies, music, and video games because it was a commodity product that was very inexpensive, that was 10, 15, 20 bucks, that you could easily compare, and we ran the entire category as a loss leader. Because we lost money on that category, but the purchase cycle we found was ridiculously low, right? A DVD is a DVD is a DVD, no matter where you get it. The question is, what's the price and how quickly can you get it to me? But the strategy paid off. We grew, from 3 million to about 800 million in 5 years. And the height of that growth was really fueled by, a lot of things. We had a partner program, but we had different types of products. So when we saw, fashion or big screen TVs, sometimes, it took people coming a couple of times to the site, and we knew that they went from sort of awareness to that research phase where they were trying to find it cheaper elsewhere, and then eventually came back and bought it. We also found that there was people were far more likely to buy from Overstock if they had previously purchased, right? So we ran a ton of TV campaigns, and it was sort of, I think 30 to 35 days, as I recall, was the number. So right in October, we went really thick with all of our TV campaigns, knowing that we were going right into the Q4 season where, in retail, you make it rain at that time. So that strategy really worked out for us as well. The goal was drive a ton of people in October, knowing that they'll have a higher propensity to come back and buy in the November, December timeframe.
Cool. Let's shift gears. I've had a couple questions. One just came in about talent, and that's something that's been talked about a lot lately. We've even had discussions on the topic. Is it something is it a challenge? It's talked about not only here, but kind of all across the country. Is it a challenge that you guys are experiencing? What kind of talent in particular are you looking for, having challenge with? And how does that compare? Is that different, B2C versus B2B? Same skill set, different skill set?
I think it depends on the department. I think, a good engineer is a good engineer. I think product design, I think if you have the tenets of getting that user research, understanding good interface design, understanding how to get to truly what is the pain point for your customer, and understanding just basic design principles, I think there's a lot of crossover skills. I think, obviously some of the more, the marketing, I think, is much, I think you have a skill set, right? So we certainly, for certain departments like marketing, let's say, we look for B2C folks. We want people with big brand name for customer-facing experience. I think talent in general is really interesting, and I think it's the most important thing that Angie's List is doing right now. We are kind of raising the bar as far as the talent that we're looking for, and I think there is no substitute for making a good hire. I think you get the right people in, and it's a game changer, and it raises the performance of everyone around them. So it's an interesting position to be in. I've seen some really talented folks, especially recently, and especially in town. And I think Angie's List benefits certainly from the brand recognition. We do find it somewhat easier to bring in talent from the outside. And Indianapolis is a great city, and I'm from here, and I love showing it off. And I think it drives me crazy when people are surprised or say, "Well, I wouldn't move there," and that's a deal breaker for me, because I know what it is here, and I know how much opportunity there is. So I think the folks that we're bringing in and that level of talent and creativity, which is so critical for what we're trying to do, is really fun to watch. And it's probably my favorite thing to do, to be able to watch those folks and to hire people that are much smarter than me and let them do what we brought them there to do. It's just been really interesting, and I think the end product is so much better. So.
Yeah, I think the talent difference is huge between B2C and B2B. To Shelley's point, both companies need technology, and so developers are. We've been pulling developers from Interactive Intelligence, Primo, Exact Target. So thankfully, we've had some big behemoths in town that created great tech culture before us that we've been able to attract from. We didn't steal any people from Angie's List yet. Emphasis on yet.
They don't want to leave.
There we go. I do think on B2B, the highest paid people in a B2B organization are typically the salespeople, right? Because there's the biggest difference in my mind is B2B is more about sales and relationship, and so you tend to weight heavily the staff on from a compensation standpoint towards that, whereas B2C is typically product marketing and technology, and both really have technology. But B2B, I'd say there's a greater focus on sales and that relationship management, and the difference between a good salesperson and a great salesperson can be millions of dollars in revenue for you, right? Whereas in B2C, it's more marketing talent, and finding good B2C marketers in Indy has been a little tough. I mean, even at Chacha, it was very tough to find, I think, talent in here because it's so B2B focused. And I think marketing in B2C is a different animal than it is B2B. While there's a lot of similarities, the approach and what you care about and how you execute is different. I think B2B is more about telling the story and nurturing and building that relationship for the most part, whereas B2C is a lot more demand generation, right? Instant gratification, which is a much stronger focus in terms of data and analytics. I think we used to say at Overstock, if you're spending more time planning your marketing campaign than doing it, you're doing it wrong. You have to try a ton of different things and to see what works and what doesn't. Whereas in B2B, that philosophy can destroy you, right? You try and build your brand and consistency in that messaging and in that relationship, and so changing that on the fly is not good. Whereas in B2C, just look at right now, we've got thousands of different pieces of campaigns and creative and whatnot in the works that tell totally different stories, but we're trying to figure out, do mothers, which message resonates more for mothers as opposed to technologists, as opposed to this type of person. So when you have a product like ours, there's 2.1 billion people on the planet that use email, so a quarter of the world's population. We've got a pretty big spread of focus, even in the United States. It really is a product that anyone can use, very much like Angie's List. And even One-Click Ventures, right? You've got a pretty wide swath. So I see in B2C, a lot bigger focus on the type of talent that you want to pull in.
Randy, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, the retail focused roles have been very challenging for us to fill here. So one example is we just reload a director of merchandising from Chicago, from Threadless in Chicago, because the talent pool here, there really wasn't a talent pool. You have a retail presence. There is a retail presence here, but there's not much depth to it. You have Finish Line, you have Lids, there are others, but it doesn't compare to a city like Seattle. So those retail specific roles have been a real challenge for us to fill.
No, I was just going to piggyback on his comment about digital. It's one of the favorite things somebody shared with me, which made so much sense, was with digital marketing. If it just sucks, no one's going to see it. So, which is great because you can pretty quickly pull it down, and by definition of how those campaigns cycle, it won't get the eyes. So.
Yeah. There's a great story that I love. Just take 2 seconds, I promise. Dave Thomas, I don't know if this is true or not. No one's corrected me on it, so I'm just going to pretend that it's true. But I've heard this a number of times from some folks. Dave Thomas was arguing with his executives about this drive-through concept, right? And
Wendy's, Dave Thomas?
With Wendy's. And they kept saying, well, Dave, what if it doesn't work? And I guess months went by where they were just arguing and then started getting more and more heated. And the conversation came up in the executive room again. And Dave, what I heard was he slammed his fist on the table and said, you know what? I don't want to hear any more about it. We're going to do it. And we're going to put a drive-through window in Wendy's. And one of the executives said, well, Dave, what if it doesn't work? He said, if it doesn't work, it's a window. Close the window. I think with B2C, you're very much in that mindset, right? You try a ton of things. If it doesn't work, you pull it down and keep trying. Whereas B2B, you really got to take the time to get that right. It still requires testing and tune-up, but you don't have the massive switches that you do.
So at the skills level, what are the skills differences? What are the skills that you guys are particularly looking for? Whether that's what they should be getting in university and are they or not, or those skills that are just developing kind of on the fly as industry changes and that people need to be tuned into from a kind of a life or work experience standpoint.
Well, the skills for us are probably totally different, right? Because in a startup, we're looking for, this is not the typical startup. It's not, a couple of young kids with milk on their lip that are with an idea and a hope and a dream, right? I think experience, what do they say? You learn more from your failures than you do your successes in life, so I've learned a lot. But experiences taught me that experience is worth 10x. So for us, for where we are today, I mean, in October, I was the only person in this company, and now a few short months later, there's 10 folks, and 7 of them are engineers. 7 engineers with a combined 131 years of experience. So we went after not only experience and talent, we went after the most senior and elite talent I could possibly find that also has the right cultural fit for a startup, which is really difficult in the Midwest where, it's not the coast where people, the thought is anyway that the coast work, around the clock, and, we've all heard the stories of Google's midnight meetings and things like that, right? But then you get to the Midwest and it's sort of, it's more of a focus on family and family values, and that conflicts with startup culture. So for us, it was not only find the experience, find the talent, steal from sort of the best companies, but really find the people that have the cultural fit, that are willing to. We've had one engineer, you got a good team when one of the engineers asks you to buy a futon so that he can sleep in the office, and he slept there 4 or 5 times this year alone, which you can't, that's a very, how do you find that skill set, right? You can't put that on a job description. I'm pretty sure that breaks some HR rules or something. But culture, in my mind, is just as important. It's really IQ and culture that you look for, and IQ is sort of you can't have one without the other, especially in the early days of a company. As it gets bigger, culture kind of rolls downhill. But in the early days, the whole team forms the culture, and it's like soup. Not only is it like soup, each person has a bag of ingredients, and it doesn't, independently, they don't always, they might do really well, but when you add this person who has too much, a lot of salt, and this person that has a lot of salt in the same soup, it can kind of not taste so good. So you have to be real careful with that.
I think for me, in product, that's a big focus this year, and that's a really unique skill set. And I think I would consider myself having been in a product role even when it wasn't really called that at Angie's List. And I think it's really unique to be able to have that aptitude to speak to engineering, to speak their language, to earn their trust, to call bullshit when they're trying to tell you it's going to be 6 months when there's a different way around it. But at the same time, having that creativity and the vision to know kind of where we should go from a product standpoint and what our members, it's like the famous Henry Ford quote, if you'd have asked what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And so you can't just straight up ask people, what do you want? Will you hire your kitchen designer online? I don't know. They don't know often. So how do you both earn their trust, get their feedback, but have that vision to work toward? And how do you rally a big team to adopt that vision and to communicate it? We have 2,000 people at Angie's List, and 90% of my job is the politics behind the scenes of winning people over and having those back alley conversations and getting favors called in and convincing people that this is the right way to go, because we have a cruise ship, and if I want to do a 90-degree turn and change some of the things we're doing, I can turn right now, and it's going to be 6 months before we actually get there. Everybody has to be turning in the right direction, the same direction. And so it's just different. And so I think Sean's exactly right. The culture is critical. And I think for me, it's sometimes hard to tell in an interview. And I think we have this 90-day grace period where, hey, this isn't going to be a good fit. And let's just, kind of take your time hiring and fire very quickly as soon as you see that it's not a good fit, because people, the wrong people, and it's not to say that they're not skilled or not intelligent, but the wrong people and the wrong mix for that team can just be disastrous. That kind of one bad apple can spoil the bunch kind of thing. So I think Angie's List, we have gotten very disciplined in terms of that corporate vision and aligning goals across departments, but we still change a lot, and we're very entrepreneurial, and despite the scale, we make decisions quickly and we move fast, and the organizational structure might look like it does today, and it might look very different in 6 weeks. So if you don't have the skin for that, this just isn't the right place for you. And I'm very transparent about it, because I want everybody to kind of be where they're supposed to be. And it's not a good fit for anybody if they come in under the wrong circumstances or the wrong expectations. So Again, it's that product mix and that engineering aptitude that I'm looking for. Neither of us exists without the other at Angie's List in a tech company, so that's my focus as far as talent.
Riffing on an audience question, Sean, you said that you are focusing on experienced talent now, which totally makes sense because you got to make the right bets early on. Randy, we were talking about this. Randy, you and Shelley, you're both at kind of a little bit different stages and are probably simultaneously hiring experience and grooming. This question is it better to focus on a good internship program or draw from more experienced talent? It's probably not a binary question. But what approach are you guys taking to kind of solving that two-pronged approach? Obviously hunting experienced talent, but what are you doing from the grooming side as well? Internships?
Yeah, we're doing a mix of both. So we have, as you and I were talking about this morning, Mike, we've had some success with hiring technical folks through our internship program, leveraging that internship program as a feeder. So we have 7 folks on our technology team today, and of those 7, 3 came through our internship program. So technical talent is not easy to find anywhere. So being able to leverage an internship program to identify talented future full-time team members has been invaluable to our business. We're also at a stage with this new brand direction where we're ramping up headcount, especially with some of these key hires that we need to make, and we're going out and looking for the most talented folks we can possibly find. So, and we're looking outside of the city. We've had to go outside of the city for a couple of hires, and we will continue to do that. But right now, it is for us, it's more about experience than finding experienced, seasoned folks as opposed to the homegrown approach.
For us, it's experience now, but we've already sort of reached out to the Orr Fellowship and to Butler and IU and whatnot to start pulling in interns, but not on the technology side. So on the technology side, at least for the next year, we're not going to hire any junior talent or interns in that area just because we have to outpace the Googles and Microsofts and Facebooks of the world, and the only way that you can do that is to hire really top-end tech and development talent. Where we're layering the interns in is more on the marketing side. Mainly, one, we're a cash-constrained startup, so when we're spending a lot in certain areas, you have to look for ways to cut in others. But the second is, I find marketers are kind of split. You either have a data-driven marketer, or you have more I feel, creative, sort of old traditional marketer, which they're harder to teach because they know it all already. No, I'm just kidding. But that's a perfect opportunity in my mind where we have a very clear vision for what we want from marketing and the type of data and analytics that we want, and we can pull and groom interns in for far less money, give them a huge opportunity to learn and be engrossed in a startup, and really direct them to the exact output that we want. So we can teach that. It's hard to teach development, right? That you learn over many years. Whereas marketing, I can teach a very smart intern that's data driven in a week, how to be really successful. They just have to be willing to learn.
I think Angie's List has the luxury of playing in all 3 of the buckets right now, so we're really excited about the IndieX package that we're putting together with TechPoint and building that intern program that we think will rival that of the coasts. So we certainly expect to use that as a farm team and to find folks to bring on full-time as they graduate. The Orr Fellowship was conceived from the Angie's List founders, and that is a tremendously successful program that I love. You can see the fist bumps in the back of the room. I personally had the privilege of working alongside Orr Fellows for most of my time at Angie's List, and I can tell you they're among the best, the most smartest and most driven individuals that we've got on the staff. And so we love getting the Orr Fellows in and grooming them, and we're proud to say that several of them have chosen to stay on after that 2 years has expired. And then of course the top tier talent. So Angie's List has made a huge play over the last couple of years of bringing in very accomplished, successful executive talent to add to our team. Right now, I've been at Angie's List 9 years, and I can say that our leadership group is the strongest I've seen it. We have a very nice combination of homegrown talent and then some very seasoned executives and senior leaders that have come in from the outside that have been where we're going and can tell us what's around the corner and how to align ourselves to anticipate these changes, especially as a public company. So I think while we have a lot of Angie's List experts, and we are looking for those domain experts to add to that. But I also think we're lucky right now to have such strong leadership in some really key areas that we can afford to hire some junior talent because we have the leadership that can train them up. So I think we're trying to cover that entire spectrum, I'd say.
Great. I just looked at the clock and realized we are at, depending on which clock I look at, I'm going to 9:29 or 9:31. I'll split the difference and call it 9:30. So that's the end of our time. Happy Friday, everybody. Last plug, Mira Awards, the early bird discount runs up on the 11th, right, Annie? So if you've not signed up yet, make sure to get your tickets. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.